Hey everyone, welcome to Support Life in Music, another SLAM Summit with Amy Sciarretto of Atom Splitter PR. In this audio with slideshow episode, you'll hear all about Amy's work with bulldogs and how it relates to mental health. Quote, artists are artists. They're insane about their art in the best possible way, and they should be. Let's not pretend that rock and roll is sanitized. Sometimes you just need somebody to pull up a chair. Just pull up a chair and listen. I know time heals wounds, but what am I supposed to do with all this pain right now? All right, keep listening to hear what it's all about. All right, you've got me in a chokehold. What's up, everyone? This is Jack Mangan. You know me from Metal Hall of Fame, metalasylum.net. You know, I did the Am I Evil graphic novel a couple of years ago. But so the most important thing in this world for me right now in music is support life and music. We're working to kind of fight against suicide, self-destruction, substance abuse, all of the plagues that are in our music industry right now. But as I was saying to my guests before we got going, like, we're not trying to be the drag down the whole party. You know, we're trying to have some fun. They're heavy topics, but you know, we're trying to keep the tone of the conversation light. So today, really, it's a great honor. I've actually had the honor to interview this person a couple of times over the years, but you know, worked with them quite a bit. They've had an amazing career. Really, this person, I can't do them justice. No matter how much I talk about like the cool stuff they've done. But working with bands like Killswitch Engage, Sleep Token, Pierce the Veil, Venom. One of my favorites who I nag her about sometimes is Zeal and Ardor, because it's one of my favorite bands. You know, got Roadrunner in the past, but Atom Splitter PR right now. All right, without further ado, Amy Sciarretto, thanks so much for taking some time to talk to me today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, and thanks for the wonderful intro.
Well, no more compliments after that, though. You're cut off after
Just
that.
insults.
Yeah, just insults after this. Well, you know, one thing that I got to say is, you know, and this is something actually that you and I have spoken about in the past. You know, the people in this profession have, and in the music industry, there's a lot of talk and reputation about people kind of being hard asses and being predatory and uncool and, you know, kind of just mean and vicious and bullies and all these bad things. But you are the polar opposite in every way, in every interaction I've ever had with you, and your reputation like that. So yeah, I couldn't imagine anyone out there saying any of those things about you. I mean, you've talked about it, like, you know, how you like to lead being nice. I mean, is that?
Oh yeah, I believe in being nice until somebody gives me a reason not to be. Because I just, I don't like rudeness, and I don't think people should be mean to people because that's somebody's dad or somebody's brother or somebody's son or somebody's best friend, or just maybe somebody that just doesn't deserve to be treated that way. So like I said, I'll always start off being nice, and then if somebody is not nice, then I'll just destroy them. So, but if somebody's not nice, then they're gonna get not nice me back, and I'm sure you nice me is way better than not nice me.
All right, so you've been warned out there.
Yeah, but like I said, there should be no reason. It's rock and roll. This is supposed to be fun. You know what I mean? It should be no reason for people to not be nice about things. But you'd be surprised at how people can be not nice.
Yeah. All right. So name some names. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Don't, no, no,
Never,
no, no, no,
never. But they know who they are.
no. Well, let me talk about another. So forgive me, Amy. I've got a really long-winded story, but I promise there's a point to this story.
All right, go ahead, take your time, tell it.
So it's actually about one of the nice people in our industry. I know, you know, actually, John Bambino. Many people in the music industry know this guy. He and I actually go back. Actually, we predate the music industry. We were friends before that.
Oh,
So
wow, that's rare.
yeah, but you know, again, great guy. So, all right, I'm going to rush through the story. So basically, we both went to the community college in Jersey, and it was WCPE, by the way. He was actually one of the students kind of like running the place. So, like, he was already, like, by the time I started getting involved with the radio, he was basically running the place. And so I remember my very first on-air shift, my very first song that I played, like, he was there outside on the other side of the class. And I thought, oh, I'm going to, you know, because I was all, you know, clever college student. I was like, I'm going to play Last by Nine Inch Nails. It's going to be my first play. And so, but I queued it up wrong. And so Wish by Nine Inch Nails came on. Now remember, this is radio. and it was tiny, but it's still radio. You can't have curses, and that song is just loaded with them. So I load up the song and it's playing, and I go out and I'm kind of just chit chatting, and he's like, "You might want to go and take care of that." Like, as meanwhile, like Trent Reznor's like on his third or fourth f bomb. So I like run in, and again, I'm brand new to this thing. I was like fumbling with the board, and it just I completely missed. It's right as Trent Reznor gets into says "bad luck fist fuck." I look out through the glass, and there's John Bambino just kind of like just shaking his head. And now, so the point of that is, it kind of ties into what you said prior to that. A lot of people are in this just for fun or to goof around, and they don't realize that it's a business, that this is real. And Bambino, that's my point about him. This is a guy who worked hard even then. He worked hard. He took it seriously. He was not really goofing around. So I'm finally to my point, Amy. Thank you for being patient. So is that a problem in this industry where people are kind of like, I'm here for a good time. Don't make me work. Don't make me take this seriously.
Yes, I've seen it where people think like, oh, I'm in it for the party, I'm in it for the drinks, I'm in it for the hanging out with rock stars. And sure, those are perks, but those should be after you've clocked out for the day. And in this job, I work 24/7, I get emails at 2 in the morning or a text here and there, and something's always happening, especially in the 24-hour news cycle in the digital day and age. And I've seen people, you know, getting drunk while working with bands. And it's like, I don't behave that way. I just think, I still have a job to do. And a lot of times I tell people I don't go to the after party. Me and my friend Market Fearless always say this. We don't go to the after party because for the event that the after party is for, we're working all day. We're the yes men and women. Yes, who needs this? Let me get this. I got to run to the store. I got to pick this up. Did you do this interview? We got to get this person in. Oh shit, I left this person off the guest list. Sorry, am I allowed to curse? Well, you just cursed, so I can.
Yeah.
It's like, so by the time the event is over and the after party is happening, I'm exhausted. And I've said yes 10 million times, and I'm just like, oh, I can't, and I don't drink anyway, and I don't judge anybody who does, or how whatever kind of fun people have. It's just not for me because I got to get up at 5 o'clock in the next morning because big dreams, got to get up early. The irony, got to have a big dream, you got to get up early. And I don't believe in wasting time. I got to get up there because there's always somebody younger and hungrier coming down the steps behind you, coming up the steps behind you, as they say in Showgirls. So I believe in, just the sooner I get up, that's the further ahead I am of everybody else. And I also have an inbox that is a major source of anxiety because it just, I mean, somebody told me the other day, like, oh, I got 120 emails today. I get that in a half hour. You know what I mean? I'm easily clocking 1,000 emails a day. That's a lot of mail. And every one of those is an action item. A couple of them might be some mailing lists for like makeup brands that I like or bands that I like, but most of them are action items that need to be dealt with. So, I got to stay ahead of that or it will overtake me. And then that makes me very grumpy to have unread and undealt with emails. And I always tell people if I'm very quick in an email, it's because I got 50 other emails behind it. I'd rather answer your email, not waste time with pleasantries, get you what you need and move on to the next one, just because in order to be efficient and to get the job done.
Well, and yeah, that's awesome. And I see all those emails, but come on, you can be honest, Amy. 100 of those emails every half hour are pictures of dogs. Come on, you can admit it.
Oh yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean, that I will never delete. I will always stop and look at those because it's like a dopamine hit looking at photos of dogs. I look at photos of my dogs and I'm like, my God, could they be any more good looking? They're so cute. I want to punch the wall. It's a cute aggression. I'm like, I can't stand how cute you are. But yes, I will never ever not delete, never not take time to admire photos of dogs.
Well, and so for people who are like, what are they talking about? Let's explain. So I know I'll just set it up really quickly. Amy does really amazing work. I see her social media and stuff, and just really takes great care and shows great love to these dogs and gives them so much love. It's a certain breed that you really, really focus on, right? But I mean, this is a great thing you do. And
Well,
by the way, this ties into mental health too. But go ahead, go
yeah,
ahead.
for sure. Well, my dogs my personal dogs, they're bulldogs. Um and I had Higgins, who was my bulldog for 13 years, and I got him after a bad breakup. And I always say it was like Silence of the Lambs. I was in the hole in the ground and I couldn't get out because it was all smooth. I couldn't grip up. I couldn't get out of how bad I felt. And my friend Karen said, why don't you get a dog? It'll give you something to focus on. And I always say Higgins was at the top of that hole and he threw the rope down and he had it in his mouth and he pulled me out. He held the rope in his mouth, threw it down to me and he pulled me out and he gave me something to focus on. And it was the greatest love story of my life. He was my, he sat next to me. I worked from home for years and when I started my company, he was there next to me and he had such a great life that he made me he passed away in 2022. He made me want to work with shelter dogs. So for 10 years, I'd been a volunteer at an animal shelter in New Jersey and I worked almost exclusively with pit bulls. And I'm talking dogs that, were probably maybe 20 pounds less than I weigh, big dogs. And I worked almost exclusively with dogs that were at risk. These were dogs that had some behavioral issues, which could be, and the point of how this ties into mental health will come in a second. The dogs that I work with, they could have slightly undesirable behaviors like they bite the leash or they're mouthy. Dogs communicate with their mouths a lot, or and I had some that were dogs that bit people and some that bit people pretty bad, but it was, a dog will communicate and let you know if they're going to bite you. They're never going to just bite you. If they bite you, you didn't see the signs. And I know not everybody is trained to know those signs. I am. And I would work with these dogs that just needed some help to get them over the hump, to get them to adoptability. And it was some of the most rewarding things I've ever done in my life because it taught me how to see the world through somebody else's eyes, how to pay attention and read the signs. If a dog's side-eyeing me, if he's crouching low, if his ears are in a certain position, okay, let's wait. Let's let him get to know me. Let me talk to him more. Let him get used to my voice. Let him get used to my scent. Let him get used to my presence around him for a couple days before I take him out for a walk or try to get in there to take him out for a walk. Because when a dog's in a shelter and there's 50 dogs around him barking, that's an intense and insane atmosphere. They taught me patience because there were times when I used to have to try to break these behaviors and teach them new ones and they weren't getting it. And I used to always tell myself, whatever they went through made them like this. There's no bad dogs. There's only bad people that made them like this. They're all born good. And I would have to learn I learned patience. I learned how to be creative. And I took that and I apply that to my job because artists are similar. They're creative. They're these creative brains. And sometimes you struggle with being patient with them and getting through to them about things because they're just creatives and they want the world to love their music and we're working on that. But sometimes it doesn't work on their clock. So working with these dogs helped me with that. And I put myself at risk because these dogs, some of them bit people. And in 10 years of working with these dogs, I was only bitten 4 times. It's like unheard of because and 2 times it was by little dogs that I would, so it wasn't the pit bulls. But I worked with dogs that I didn't think were going to make it because of either sicknesses or behavioral issues. And it's the most rewarding thing in the world. Like I tell people, like there was this one dog, his name was Binks. He was a blue pit bull. And he would just pace in his kennel back and forth, in and out, in and out. And he would low growl at me. And I was like, I'm not going to up on this dog. And I just sat in front of his kennel for a couple weeks. And my friend Jen always says to me, I still remember you sitting there reading those poems. And I would go on my phone, I would read him Emily Dickinson poems. I would read him the poems so he would get used to the cadence of my voice. And I would sit there with a spoon in my hand and meat on it, and he wouldn't come for it. I've never seen a dog reject meat. And I was like, I'm still not going to give up on him. And then I would sit closer, and then he would come and sit and listen to me, and he got to know my smell. And then one day, one of the volunteers told me, you know what? I got him out one day. You can get him out. And he would growl at me and he stopped growling. One day I just went in, I said, we're going out, Binks. And I reached in, I took him out and we went for a walk and he eventually got adopted. And I did not think he was going to survive because he was so broken and so shut down. And to me, to see him walk out of there one day with a family was one of the greatest gifts that I could ever be a part of to help him get. I always looked at my role as getting the dogs from A to B. People say, oh, how do you do it? I could never do it. Yes, you can. Just think that they're all there with their roommates. They're not on the streets. And all your job is to get them from A, which is the shelter, to B, which is their forever home. And every dog I've had since then has been a rescue that I've gotten from a shelter. Wilbur, my current dog right now, I got him after Higgins died from a shelter. And Penelope, I also adopted from a rescue. She recently passed. And Titus, my other bulldog, I got him from this shelter that I volunteered at, and he just died of a brain tumor in January. So I those dogs taught me more than I could ever teach them, and they taught me how to apply those concepts in my personal life, making decisions and how to deal with my job, because my job is, very psychologically driven. I mean, I say a lot of times I'm almost like an adult babysitter. I have to cater to people's egos and to their creativity. And they're these brilliant people, but yeah, I mean, everybody gets in their own way. And it's just about how to deal with them and how to deal with media and how to connect those dots and be that conduit between the two of them. You're managing a lot of personalities, so I have to learn how to be like, okay, how do we either diffuse this, or how do we make this better, or how do we do this together? My job, I'm a fixer, I'm a solutions person, I'm an enforcer, I'm a problem solver. And that's why when people think publicity is setting up some interviews and sending out some press releases, that's like the bottom tier of what I do. Everything else is very layered.
Hi, I'm Burton C. Bell here with S.L.A.M with Jack Mangan and Dave Ellefson.
Hey everybody, David Olson here, and you should support S.L.A.M.
Yeah,
Sorry
well,
if I got off track there.
no, that is 100% on track. I worry that, that the press headlines after this will be, Amy says that her artists bite people or something, that
No,
she compares.
I am so blessed that I work with some of the most brilliant and amazing people out there. I'm so blessed. We have the best roster there is. Duh, I know that. And I'm so proud of it, and I'm so lucky and blessed. But artists are artists. They love that, they want people to, they're insane about their art in the best possible way, and they should be. And we want people to love it as much as we do and as much as they do, and we want the world to know about it. And that's something that's so personal. So that comes with a lot of just managing personalities.
No, that makes perfect sense. And actually, I think that does set up. So, obviously there are a lot of, personal demons, and also, as we kind of alluded earlier, there's people who are not so nice. There's like that, almost literal demons around you. So how do you protect, as a PR person, how do you protect yourself, your staff, and of course your artists and fans, and basically everyone in the circle? What are things that you feel like you need to do and want to do to protect yourself and everyone from these things?
It's just being I believe in being nice, treating people the way you want to be treated. Because like I said, like I would be horrified if like my nephew was like out doing something and somebody was horrifically mean to him. I'd be like, or my dogs, I even say it, like people can be rude to me, but don't be rude to my dog. I remember years ago I had run into a Wawa, and Higgins was in the car, and I left him, and he was in the front seat. He was locked. He was never really out of my line of sight. And I ran in to get a bottle of water, and these two little kids, they were probably like 12 or 13, and they were by my car, and I saw them while I was paying for my purchase, and they were like making these faces and pointing at Higgins, and I was like, these little motherfuckers, they better not be teasing my dog. And I went out there, and they were like, oh my God, you're the cutest dog I've ever seen. They were like exalting him. I was like, those little fuckers better been doing that, or I was ready to put my foot up their ass. But they were being cute with him, and I was like I said, be nice to my dogs, and that's the most important thing in the world, because they're beautiful, innocent creatures. But I believe, like I said, there's people who come at me rude. I've had people come at me and make mistakes. Like I had someone once, a photographer, who texted me on a like Saturday night after I just gotten home from my friend's wedding. It was a Saturday night, not
Mhm.
all outside of business hours. And um texting me, I'm at the show and I'm not on the guest list that you said you put me on. I said, oh my God, what show is this? And he mentioned a band that I have not worked with in like 7 years. And I was like, hey man, I haven't worked with that band in a really long time. So it wasn't me who put you on the guest list. And I was like, and I would have told you that when you made the request. So I think you've reached me in error. And he was like, and then he was like, well, I just went into my email. And then he looked and realized that the email, that last time I had sent him an email, was like years ago. And he was like, oh, I didn't realize that. No, I'm sorry. No, oops, no egg on my face. It was really nasty to me. And then didn't even apologize for interrupting my Saturday night with rudeness. Not even a, hi, Amy, can you fix this? It was, excuse me, I drove here and I'm not on the list. You fucked up. Like, if you talk, you get more, flies with honey than vinegar. You should just be nice to people. It's like I tell my team, like, always respond to emails, even if we don't have the answer that people want. If, if they're not going to get a yes, you still should reply and still be polite. But some people are punishers and they don't want to take no for an answer. And that's when I start to say, like, no is a complete sentence. And I'm not telling you no for my health. I'm telling you no because I have a set of stipulations that were put in place and criteria that were put in place months before you ever even thought about emailing me, because all of our publicity campaigns are strategized. These are not arbitrary. They're not done off the cuff. I know what certain artists are going to do and aren't going to do. And I know what their comfort levels are with things. And so if I tell you no, it's because you don't check off the boxes. And I always say, hey, sorry, can't make that happen. Hey, what about this artist? Maybe we can work together on this artist. But I've had people come at me with like entitlement, rudeness. I had one guy tell me he was sending me emails for weeks. And I said, I'm sorry, I didn't get your emails. Can you please forward them to me? Because I'd like to know, like, and so he forwards me the emails and they were sent to the wrong email address. So I never got them. So they bounced back because I was like, oh, send it to me because my IT guy will check it out. And then I see that. And I said, hey, just want to let you know that that's not my email address. It's incorrect. You have it spelled wrong. And he didn't even say sorry. Just was like, well, you didn't get them. Right. Because you made an error. Now you're snapping at me and telling me I don't respond to your emails. I'm known for being almost too responsive to emails. Like, don't come at me. Like, because you know what I mean? Like, I know what I do. I know my routines because I live them every day. So when people try to come at you with and I just I remember years ago, a photographer had reached out to me and I couldn't set him up with something, but I said to him, send me your photos. And if a spot opens up, I'll let you know. And he had kept sending me a couple of emails and I just kept responding very politely to him. And then his father emailed me a couple of days later and said, I just want to thank you for the kindness you showed my son because he's autistic and he is currently living on his own. And he's a passion for photography and music. And he's learning through his adult program how to like communicate with people and reach out for these things. And I could see how his emails might have been frustrating. And you were so polite and kind to him and didn't snap at him once. And I just want to commend you and thank you for showing my son some kindness. And I said, well, doesn't everybody do that? Like me, maybe my dad and mom just maybe raised me, really well or something. But I just, but that's not to say I don't get frustrated with people who, like punish, but I could tell this guy the way he was writing me that like he was asking questions and he did not know. So I was educating him on it and his father. And I stayed in touch with his dad for a little bit because I made me, I said, my father would be proud of me for treating somebody that, might not get kindness all the time, so I just believe in being nice until people give you a reason not to be. And people give you a reason not to be quite often, but sometimes just like I try to take it in stride.
Well, what a great story, seriously. And actually, I can say yes, you are super responsive to emails. I can attest to that.
Because if I don't respond to it, it's going to sit there and start piling up. So I'm not the type like if a couple months ago, the door handle on my dryer in my condo came loose and I couldn't get the dryer door. And I could have jiggered it a little bit and it would open. And I was like, I don't wait. I immediately called my appliance guy who fixes those things. If something goes wrong, I fix it the day of because I don't believe in waiting. When I get my tax bill for my dad's house, I pay it that day. I don't wait because I have a month and a half. I don't wait because there's always going to be 100 more things that are going to pile up. Do it, check it off, on to the next one. I just don't believe in like procrastination that way because I just don't have that kind of time, I believe in doing things as they land in your lap, do it, boom, check it off next. And I believe that's the secret to my efficiency for the amount of things that I manage.
Wow. So you should like be a life coach. I mean, this is seriously.
I'm just really very, very anal about things. I'm very organized. And I just have to be. I make lists. I check things off. I still have a color-coded print calendar that I use because I was always very multitasking in college. And that system, I learned it. I took a time management seminar in college. And I always used the color-coded method and I checked things off and it served me well. So why change it just because we live in a digital age? Yeah, I have a bunch of checklists in my phone, but I feel accomplished when I check things off every day. And yeah, it just keeps me on top of things. And it's funny, I gave a talk at my old college. I went to Rutgers, and they always invite me back to
Mm.
speak to the students. And I went to update my information in the Career Center, and the woman who worked there said to me, "I remember you. I knew you were going to make something of yourself because you were in here every day before you graduated, making resumes, doing things. You were like you were always at the radio station, you were always at the newspaper, you were interning." And it was just nice to hear that. She goes, "I hope that some of these kids that came to your talk like really absorb some of that." So. Like I said, I try to help people because I remember the people who helped me when I was trying to get ahead.
Yeah, that's awesome. I applaud every last bit of that. That is really, yeah, that's great. And I'll throw in just as a quick anecdote. It's just, I know this is, I guess I'm addressing the listeners. I know Amy through a small press. I'm proud of what Rich Catino and I have done with Metal Asylum, but it is a small press. So I don't have any illusions, and I've approached Amy for stuff that was maybe above our our level of prestige, for some artists who are kind of big, but she was always professional about it. Again, and I think our interactions were always that way. And same for Rich. Rich is a great guy, like no one word. I think that gets you. And and not just with Amy, but with other PR folks, I've gotten into gigs that were maybe above our station a little bit because, being polite and respectful, I think that does get you a long way. So I think that's going to be probably the number one takeaway from this talk. Will be others, but yeah. So I guess it's not a question, Amy. I'm just kind of just backing up everything you were saying about
Well,
this
I try
stuff.
to tell people too, because I get a lot of new people who don't know how this works asking me for an interview and say, "Hey, I don't have any listeners or viewers on my blog, but I need to get them. So I need to talk to this big band." Well, it doesn't work that way, because the bands are, certain bands are only going to talk to top tier media. But I say to them, "Hey, here's how this works. Why don't you try talking to this band because they're a developing act like you're a developing outlet." I try to take time to explain to people how it works because a lot of people probably don't do that or don't respond. So um
Sure.
I mean, we really try to do that as much as we can and be as polite as we can to people because, like I said, people, can just be rude and this is this is rock and roll, yes, but it's also a professional job. I still have a boss that I'm accountable to. I have a lot of bosses, which are my clients, and um, if you're not gonna treat this like it's a professional job, then you're probably not going to last, or you're
Mm.
not going to last in a way where people are going to look at you and think, you're the one. I want people to, I always want to put my best foot forward out there because why wouldn't you? You know what I mean? And it's like people know who the jokers are, because how they act.
Right. Well, let me ask a little bit. This is still in line with what we've been talking about, but yeah, I mean, obviously we are. Part of the reason why I support Life in Music Slam exists is because this industry it's just prevalent. The self destruction is prevalent around us. It's a sad fact of it. We've lost a lot of people in our industry. It's kind of a more at risk profession than others. So what have you what have you been able to do, or what do you feel like we should all do as a PR person or anyone when you're kind of around someone who's just clearly like headed for the cliff, like who's just in a bad place and maybe is struggling to get out? Like how do you handle it, and how do you think people should handle it?
I think it's very sad because there's people who, whether it's, overindulging in things that are dangerous for them or just hitting a bad place mentally. We're all there at some point in our lives, and it's just a matter of turning to the people that can. I always tell my one friend Jessica this. I say sometimes you just need somebody to pull up a chair. Just pull up a chair and listen. You don't need to assess, you don't need to analyze, you don't need to offer hard 1, 2, 3 solutions, this, and this. Just pull up a chair and listen. And I think sometimes that does more than any kind of program. Sometimes people are just desperate to be heard and be seen, and I think that you always have that person that you can call, and hopefully you have more than one person that you can call. And I always used to say, like, sometimes this goes back to the dogs. I've seen dogs that were coming out of situations that you know they shouldn't have survived. Fighting rings, being abandoned, being starved. It's awful. It makes you go, wow, I'm embarrassed of my fellow humans that allowed a living, breathing, sentient being to get to that state. And I've watched these dogs lick your face while they're going into surgery because they were a bait dog. And these dogs have capacity for forgiveness. They have capacity for survival and resilience that I don't think human beings have quite gotten there yet. And I always used to tell myself when I would feel bad about something, I would go, there's somebody out there who has it worse. And you know what? Just I used to think of those dogs and like how they survived. Like they got through something way worse, and I just have to remember that, and sometimes that's hard. Sometimes it's hard to just tell yourself things. I used to always just say like, every day above ground should be a good one. And sometimes they're not going to be good ones, but you know what? You're still going to get up tomorrow. There's still going to be another sunset and another sunrise. And you kind of have to hold on to that. And it gets hard. I know it. I understand. It gets, when you're going through the shit, you don't want to hear that. You're like, no, I'm not feeling better. It's not going to get better. And people say that to people all the time, and it feels so dismissive, like as if you're current, like there's a book that I read, and there was a comment where and one of the characters says, I forget the book, but it was like, and I carried it with me, and I still use this quote. They say, people say time will heal wounds. Time, it's always going to take time. It's going to take time. And that's great. But what about now? What do I do with all of this time? I know time heals wounds, but what am I supposed to do with all this pain right now? With that time isn't going to touch because it's in the here and now. And that's a hard question to ask yourself. And that's when you have to find something to fill the space. And you just got to know that there's a reason to hold on. I used to make it dogs, like they the unconditional love that you'll receive on the other end of that there's nothing greater than that, because I remember Des from Devil Driver told me when I first got Higgins, he goes, nobody in your life, and I mean nobody, is ever going to be that happy to see you every single time you walk in that door. And he goes, and there's no greater feeling. And he's right. I could go outside for 5 minutes to go get the mail. When I come home, it's like they haven't seen me in 15 years. It's the greatest moment of their life. I mean, I say, try it, get a dog, and it's going to make you feel that great all the time. They just have a capacity for love that I don't think humans do.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, I wouldn't say I was joking before, but now I'm dead serious. You've really got to write a book, in your copious free time, you've really got to.
Oh my God. I mean, I just got like my friend Eric German, he's a lawyer out in LA, an entertainment lawyer. He's always like, you should write a book about the Roadrunner years. I'm like, when I did, because there's a Roadrunner documentary happening, Jim is doing an amazing job with it. And I mean, every story I told him, I was like, dude, I can't say this stuff out loud. I was like, I got stories and I can't print most of them, like my dad it's funny. My dad used to say to me, like, when because he didn't understand my job, when I'd be like, oh, I got to go to a show. One of my bands has a show over in Philly. If I visit my dad, and I would go because I grew up right outside of Philly, and I visit my dad, I'm like, oh, I'm going to a show. He's like, well, what do you do at a show? Do you encourage the bands? I go, encourage them, make them do their interviews. I yell at them. I was like, I'm just like I said, I'm a babysitter, and it's like, or you're getting them their drinks or whatever. So, I mean, it's like, let's not pretend that rock and roll is sanitized.
Well, sure. Yeah. And I mean, and that's not even S.L.A.M's point. S.L.A.M's point isn't like, don't ever be around it or touch it. It's just be safe. That's so
Always
again,
be safe. Everything in moderation. If you do too much of anything, it's just not good. I mean, that's just a basic tenet of life, and that's in anything, food, drinking, music, everything. If you do too much of it, you burn out on it, or it could mess you up. So you have to like try to be a little measured about it.
Yeah. This is seriously fantastic. Do you have time for two more questions? Can I ask
Yeah, of
two
course.
more? Okay, awesome.
No worries. I hope I'm not boring you.
No, this is great stuff. And by the way, I live in Phoenix. I've lived in Phoenix for over 20 years, but I grew up in Jersey. That's where my boy Rich and much of my friends still are. So
what part of Jersey again? Like where?
well, I grew up in Union County, up like around Elizabeth, around. So I lived near Rutgers for a little while. I've lived a couple of places. I lived in South Jersey for a while, but
part of South Jersey. I'm from South Jersey, Camden County / Haddon Township, but I've lived in Bergen County, Rutherford for most of my adult life, longer than I lived in South Jersey.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I like hearing you talk definitely brings me back home. But yeah, it's I lived in South Jersey. I lived in Hamilton for a little while.
Oh, right on. I'll say one thing about New Jersey, and I think you might concur. It's the greatest country in the world. I even have
Yes.
a sticker from the Smith Village, I think I got it from, which is kind of on, like towards the shore. I think they have a New Jersey store, and I got a sticker there that says New Jersey is the greatest country in the world, and I couldn't agree.
Yeah, no, I was back last year, and it was great to be back. But yeah, I totally, and actually, I know you do a lot of press and interviews and whatnot. But yeah, we actually, Rich Catino and I, when we were doing a lot of live streams from S.L.A.M, we did something focused on Jersey music, because I mean, and that's a whole. I don't want to. That's not where I'm leading us, Amy, because we'll talk for 3 more hours. But
Oh my God, I can talk about New Jersey and never get sick of it.
But I will say this really quickly. Frank White and Alan Tecchio put out a Jersey metal book, and they're continuing
Yeah, I
to
remember this.
develop it. Yeah, so everyone should check that out. It's a great stuff. They're doing great work with it. Yeah, but I'm just saying, I hear that, people think the Jersey accent is New Jersey. I'm from but that's not it. It's actually, listen to Amy. And listen to me. I hear it in me too. My wife and people make fun of my Jersey accent sometimes when it comes out, when I'll say like water. I'm gonna go get in the water.
Oh God, I lost that accent a long time ago.
But no, it's good. So anyway, I'm the one who took us off point. So let me. So my real question for you, and actually this is a serious question now. And actually, I will just quick preface. I talked to a couple of band managers about this not that long ago. So, but now, can you actually educate the people listening? What is the difference between what a PR rep does, what an agent does, and what an artist manager does? What's the main difference?
Between a PR rep, agent, and a manager?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll start with the manager. Manager's like the traffic cop for all those other things. Radio person, press person, agent, label people, marketing people, social media, digital, all that. The manager's the traffic cop. He's the nerve center and all the tentacles. He or she are like connecting with all the other aspects of your business. The publicist is responsible for your media profile. That's not just interviews, reviews, live coverage, tickets, guest list interviews. It is your perception, how the public perceives you, how you portray yourself, how you are portrayed in the public sphere via the media. And agent is the booking agent, is books your shows, get you on tours, get you booked in venues, get you paid, negotiates your show rate. But their job is to get you on the road and in the venues and either headlining or on package tours.
Nice. Okay. Well, actually, so the three people I talked to were managers or who have been around managers. We had Michael Brandvold, Pamela Parks, and Jarvis Leatherby, and they all kind of were like, "Yeah, a lot of this is being a mom." Like
Yeah.
all three of them, like a lot of it is on momming the artist. Is that basically true of what you do as well?
Yes, like I said, I'm like being a babysitter. No, and I don't mean babysitter like you're being a brat. It's just babysitter being watching everything, taking care of everything, making sure stuff gets taken care of.
Right, but the cool babysitter. No, that's the difference, right? It's not the strict babysitter, but like the cool
No,
babysitter.
you're just like when I used to babysit, we used to, make stuff in an easy bake oven,
Nice.
and watch Lost Boys. So
Nice. Okay, excellent. All right. Well, so actually, the last thing, well, I want to say thank you so much for the wisdom, the great talks. It's always great talking to you. I really appreciate it. If I want to give you an opportunity to talk about Atom Splitter and the artists that you're excited about right now. So feel free to please take as long as you need to, like just promote yourself and all the things that you have going on for 2025 or in the future and everything.
yeah, well, we, like I said, I worked for Roadrunner in-house many years, and then I left Roadrunner on a Friday, and I started Atom Splitter on a Monday, and that was because I had gone to a Killswitch show. I was left Roadrunner on a Friday, went to the Killswitch show in Brooklyn, I think on a Saturday, and said, "Hey guys, I'm leaving Roadrunner," and Mike D from the band was like, "Well, don't leave us," and I said, "Okay." So Monday, I started my company to continue working with them, and they're my flagship client that I've worked with since the beginning of their career, and so that's why I always say I would lay down on a landmine for them and I always tell them whenever I'm in a band meeting, I'm like, "I'm miserable because of you guys, but because you guys made me stay in PR." I'm only kidding when I say that, but or I'm having a bad day. But I stayed doing what I want to do to continue to work with them. And I love those guys. You know, they're really important to me on many levels musically and just as humans. You know, and they're touring this summer with Summer of Loud, which we are doing all the press for, which is it's all our bands. You know, we have Beartooth, Parkway Drive is on it, The Amity Affliction, Devil Driver, not Devil Driver, sorry, Devil Wears Prada, I Prevail. So it's a great tour. You know, we work with so many amazing bands. We work with Beartooth, we work with The Pretty Reckless, Alice Cooper, Falling in Reverse, Sleep Theory. We did Sleep Token for many years from the very beginning. You know, we get to be a part of a lot of really amazing artists and amazing careers. You know, we work with Behemoth, we work with Trivium, we work with Dayseeker. You know, we have established bands that we've been with from the beginning and up and coming bands that we're developing and we're working with. We work with this band Bloodywood, who are doing amazing things. They're going to be touring with Baby Metal. They fuse classic Indian music with metal. It's like unlike anything you've ever heard, you know. So we're very lucky for the artists and the projects that we get to work. We work with amazing labels, amazing managers. A lot of my relationships are people that I worked with at Roadrunner back in the day, and then they have a band signed to another label and said, "Oh, now I get to work with you on my other bands." So, you know, it's all relationship based, you know. And I always tell people what I try to do to set myself apart is just, you know, I care more. I care more than I'm ever going to get paid to care. Most people give 0 fucks or 1 fuck. I give a fucks, you know, and I'm never not going to give a fuck. I mean, it's nice when we run our course of the band and they might want to make a change or we do, it still always takes a piece of my heart and breaks it because I care so much and I invest so much and I embed so much, and it is a blessing and a curse. One of my mentors used to say, you need to give less fucks. And she was right for my own mental health. But because of who I am, I can't not give a fuck. And I think that's what sets us apart. You know, my team is amazing. I can't not give them all a shout out. You know, there's Tim, who's based over in Little Falls. And then we have Rachel, who's in Chicago. And there's Shane, who is in Philly. And we have Tori, who's in Florida. And we have Seth, who's our back end guy, and he's in Pennsylvania. And then we just hired our new assistant, Caitlin, who's based out in South Jersey and in the right outside of Philly. So it's an amazing team. And they, you know, we work really hard to go that extra mile for all of our artists. You know, we're always gonna, you know, if somebody tells us, can you get this? And we're like, that's gonna be tough, but we're still gonna try. And we might get told no, and then we're gonna try again and we'll try again. And then if we get the hard no, then we'll try something else and go move on to the next thing. But we'll always try. Why not? Fuck it. Pull the pin out of the grave and see what happens.
Well, I mean, and it's led to success. I mean, you know, you and I talked about this. I think last time we did an interview, you were named one of the top PR people in the world. I don't remember exactly the title, but you know, I know you've gotten some accolades. And
Metal Sucks put me on there. I'm sorry, people still talk to me about that. I loved it. And I was not expecting, it was funny when that happened. I was not expecting to be on that list because they were rolling that list out. I think it was like in 2016. And the reason I remember that is because I was having new carpets put into my condo. And my whole house was packed up, and I was living and working on a couch for a week because I had to pack my entire house. And then when they brought the carpet, the guy put the wrong number down, and it was not the carpet I ordered. It was a shag carpet. I said, no way, bro, no way. And then they had to order another carpet to replace it. So I was living on my couch and sleeping on my couch and working on my couch for another week. And I remember I was like miserable because I'm like working, I'm living on this couch. Where's this fucking carpet? And I kept getting dings on my phone. I'm like, what is going on right now? And I checked my phone. Everybody's sharing the Metal Sucks post because they were rolling it out like one a day. And I remember I kept telling Monty Connor, who used to, you know, sign Sepultura, Slipknot, Fear Factory, Typo Negative, all the most amazing bands. I wrote her, I'm like, you're going to be number one. He's like, no, I'm not. Brian Slagel from Metal Sucks is going to be, from Metal Blade's going to be number one. And they were both on the list. And I never would have expected me to be on the list. And I was number 12. And I was shocked and honored to be picked. And I said, oh my God, that meant so much to me because I wasn't expecting it. And it was just nice to get recognized because it was, you know, I just don't ever, you know, my job is to make other people famous, not myself.
well, it's well deserved. And you know, I appreciate personally, I appreciate all the professionalism and just coolness and just friendliness and friendship over the years. Let's keep this going. And everyone, Amy Sciarretto of Adam Splitter PR, just one of the best in the business.